Hi guys, it's Marc Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi, also known as Marc Zicree of Space Command, and it's the day after my 2 days at AFM, the American Film Market, so I'm a little scruffy today. It's Veterans Day. I'm just kicking back, relaxing. Elaine and I just saw Big Hero 6, which I very much enjoyed, and this Mr. Sci-Fi video is going to be commenting on the previous two and answering some questions from our audience, our fans. And so first of all, the next Mr. Sci-Fi video will be talking about Space Command. It's been requested that I talk about where we are. We're editing. We're ramping up toward the next film. We've been selling investment shares in the second film, which has been going very well. Thank you to our investors and our fans. And also, I'll be telling about the fun of shooting with our wonderful cast, Doug Jones, Mira Furlan, Bill Mummy, Mike Harney, on, maybe sharing some anecdotes about the experience of shooting with all of you. And then after that, we'll get back to our Ray Bradbury series, telling stories about my friendship with Ray and talking about the sequel to the Martian Chronicles that we worked on, the miniseries and the book, and where that led. So, but for now, what we're going to be talking about is the last two Mr. Sci-Fi videos, because there is a thread that links them, and people have pointed this out to me. And so just to refresh your memory, the last one was from the AFM on why low-budget science fiction films are generally not of great quality, and the other was on Interstellar, and the fact that it wasn't the great science fiction movie I hoped it would be. So let's talk about that. But the thing I neglected to mention, and this is what was pointed out to me based on my commentary yesterday, was I didn't mention the script, how important the script is to a science fiction movie. And yes, and the reason I didn't mention, of course, is because I'm a writer, and for me, the script is a given. The fact that it'll be, that there will be, wonderful writing, that's what I work on, that's what I polish, it's in my control. So, and I can talk about what makes a good script and what doesn't. And in terms of Interstellar, since we did the video on Interstellar, I've seen it again, and I saw it in a motion simulator, a chair that moved along with the film, which was very fun. I highly recommend that experience. And I'm more forgiving of the film because when you see it, you know what to expect and what not to expect. So you're not as disappointed by what's not there, and you can sort of see the virtues of what is there. And in that regard, it was, it's thoughtful. It's coming from a good heart. They're working very, very hard. It's just, for me, it wears its philosophical viewpoint a little too much on its sleeve, and there's some twists and turns that are a little strange, which I will not reveal. But you sort of have to hide your tracks when you're going after a thematic point, and you have to be a little bit subtle about it, and in the way that many of my favorite films are. And Blade Runner is a great example of that, where it's a huge entertainment, but it's a really interesting rumination on what is human, what makes someone human and compassionate. But it doesn't go into big speeches about that. It's very subtle. By the way, I met James Wong. I mentioned that yesterday. James Hong, sorry, from Blade Runner and Big Trouble in Little China, and hopefully we'll be getting him into our films as well. I'd love that. Love that. I'm starting to make the list of actors I want to use in Space Command. The Battlestar Galactica actors, many more Star Trek actors. Stars from many of my favorite films and TV shows. We'll be bringing them aboard, and I'll be announcing that as we move forward. We've already started talking about some of the actors we want. And but in terms of script, and in terms of Interstellar, in terms of low-budget science fiction films, here's the thing. Paper is cheap. It doesn't cost, a good script costs no more to write than a bad script. And if you're aspiring towards something of quality, you start with, okay, what do I want to say? What's my point? What do I want to communicate about, real life? Secondly, you think about, well, what characters are of interest to me? What are truthful characters? What's based on people I know? A lot of films are just too derivative. There were a lot of knockoffs of Gravity, low-budget knockoffs of Gravity, low-budget knockoffs of other films that we've all seen. And of course, horror films, because they're cheap to make. But again, if you're going to do a horror film, find some way of doing something innovative. That's why I love Night of the Living Dead. George Romero read I Am Legend by Richard Matheson, and it gave him the idea to create a new kind of monster. And he created these wonderful zombies that everyone else has done movies about and TV shows about. So in terms of writing a really good script, you say, okay, what haven't I done? What haven't I commented on before? What isn't the same old, same old? What's going to be fresh? Then you say, okay, what characters are interesting? How are they different from each other? Maybe how they're commenting on real life, or perhaps underrepresented kinds of people that you see in real life. How is it also commenting on the genre of the films and TV shows I've seen and I've loved? How is it a nod toward them without being just a ripoff of them? So what makes it fresh and building on everything we've seen before, everything that's gone before? So you're in the tradition of something. You're not, just out on a wing in a prayer, hoping that what you're working on will work. Are the characters, do they speak like real people? Or if they don't speak like real people, they speak in an interesting way that will entertain the viewer. Does the story pay off well? Does it have something that grabs in the beginning, builds logically, but in a fresh way, and then pays off in a way that the audience will leave feeling like they didn't waste their time? These are all considerations, and so that's part of it, and it starts to live and breathe. There comes a point where it's no longer just the nuts and bolts. It's no longer just an experiment or an exercise in structure or an exercise in connecting the pipes, but it starts to have a life of its own. And so there's all of those things in a very subtle dance that ultimately will entertain and move an audience and be something they remember and perhaps revisit often in their life. It's funny, I just got a letter from someone who saw one of the He-Man episodes I wrote when I was a kid, and it had meant a huge amount to them in their childhood. They'd gone through some hard times, and this was one of the happy memories of their childhood. And so for me, He-Man is not the high point of my career. I always try to do a very good job in everything I write, but that was just, I was writing an animation. I never intended to be an animation writer, just like Rod Serling never intended to be a science fiction writer, but that's where I started, with Smurfs and He-Man and Super Friends and Real Ghostbusters and all those shows. And so I learned my craft, and many of the shows I did enjoy. Real Ghostbusters was a lot of fun to write, but He-Man was okay, but to other people it means a lot, and I'm gratified that something I worked on has meaning to people. But basically, to my brothers and sisters out there making films, and to those of you who are watching films, and so I guess that covers pretty much everyone, seek out things that entertain you, seek out things that move you, seek out things that will better your life. And in terms of the art that we're creating, just work a little harder, do a little better, do a little more. Don't let enough be good enough, or good enough be enough. And then just show it to people, refine it. Don't be afraid of criticism. Don't be afraid, by the way, to do something and have the next one be better. Learn from your process, learn from what you're doing. And as I said before, gravitate toward people who are enormously talented, and they'll resonate to what you're doing, and you'll resonate to what they're doing, and it'll make it all better for all of us. It's very funny because the science fiction writers that I grew up with, Harlan Ellison, Ted Sturgeon, Heinlein, Isaac Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, all of these guys, they knew each other, and particularly in the 1940s, 1950s, into the 60s, they were all communicating. There was one point where Ted Sturgeon, who was writing, when you were earning a penny a word or 5 cents a word, you had to write continuously to just make a living. And at one point, Ted Sturgeon went dry, and he wrote Heinlein saying, "Can you advise me?" And Heinlein sent him something like 25 pages worth of ideas, saying, "Here, use them. You can have them for free." And Ted actually wrote a few stories that were based on those ideas, and I thought that was enormously gracious of Heinlein. And so it was really a camaraderie, a band of brothers, as they say. So anyway, so that's just a little bit more of my ruminations on all of this. We'll see where everything leads. It's thrilling to be working on Space Command now. I can't wait to share it with all of you. I'll be posting another video very shortly. And again, if you want to comment about, it's the script, of course, or something else relating to science fiction films, either high budget or low budget, $200,000 or $200 million. Comment, share, like, spread the word. We're trying to expand the purview of the Mr. Sci-Fi channel. And, also you can check out spacecommandmovie.com or marczicree.com or my Marc Zicree Facebook page or the Space Command Movies Facebook page. All of those things we're posting every single day. So that's it. Talk to you soon. And it's Marc Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi. Until next time, bye-bye.